Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy July 12th. We're so happy to have you join us today for this, exciting discussion. There we go. Sorry about that. Accidental mute. Good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Giovambattista, the founder of Beyond Maine, and we have Dannah Dawood here from Dawood Media with us today. And we're really excited to have this discussion. It's something that both Dannah and I over the years have kind of encountered as small business owners ourselves, but also as individuals and companies that support other small businesses and nonprofit organizations. And it really, the statistics of today really kind of prove why this is such, I think, a needed discussion to have. One in three small businesses have actually expressed concern over their lack of ability to access capital and funding. We do know in the venture space that less than 2% of female founders, and even I think 0.2 or 0.5% of people of color receive venture capital funding. So it's tough out there to find capital. But one area where we feel like there is a massive amount of opportunity, it's just very difficult to kind of seed through it and pick through it, is grants. And there's a number of different sources. So today what we're going to talk about is, all the different kind of grant sectors you can consider and some tools and resources to help you, search and filter to find the ones that might best match what your organization or your small business is focused on. And, kind of some tips on how to put a great application together. And should you need further assistance, some ways you can actually hire a grant writer to improve your chances of kind of getting that application funded. But if you are new to Beyond Maine and have no idea what we are and what we do, Beyond Maine is a technology platform cooperative that really is trying to kind of change the way we shop local and access our downtown communities. So our software supports the ability for small businesses to quickly get online and sell their goods and services in a community-centric kind of way. We help not just small businesses, but we also help communities and economic development organizations or chambers, merchants associations really kind of create these community-based online shopping opportunities through our marketplace on beyondmaine.com, as well as through white label opportunities where it's customized for your community or state. Dannah, do you want to go ahead and take a quick second and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Dannah Dawood. I own a digital marketing agency. I'm here based out of New Jersey, but work with small businesses across the country. And we really help small businesses establish a really strong online presence. So from website development to branding, social media marketing, email marketing, we really help them in all aspects of the digital world. And I'm excited to talk about this today. I know many of my clients have really relied on grants these past 2 years to kind of help them through the pandemic, but I know there are so many resources available for your business year round. So I'm hoping we can give you guys some good information, some great resources, and so you guys can go out there and get some grants.
Cool. So this is actually our 1-year anniversary of hosting these calls. If you ever need to go back or can't attend one, we do have a YouTube channel where we post the call, as well as we'll send out links via our social channels and our email distribution list so that you can access the recordings should you ever miss them. But our Eventbrite is where you can register and sign up. They were always free. We always have amazing guest speakers come and join us. And we're really excited for the additional sessions that we have throughout this year. So thanks for being with us on this kind of 1-year anniversary. And if you have ideas or suggestions of things as we're speaking that you really feel you're struggling with or would love to have a session focused on a certain topic, please put those in the chat, because really these are for you, and we want to make sure that if you're taking the time to tune in, that you're getting really valuable information and assistance that's going to help you go back and improve your own skill set, the skill set of those that you work with or opportunities that your small business or nonprofit has. So we do meet the first Tuesday of every month is kind of our live call time. And that's kind of standard for us, 10 a.m. Occasionally, if we have a great guest speaker, we'll sprinkle in between sessions, but mostly every second Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. And kind of with that, we will get started.
All right, so like Kate said, we're going to go over a different variety of grants, but I wanted to kind of break down exactly, like I said, grants are basically a sum of money, right? So they're awarded by an organization, government institution, and they help businesses carry a really variety of expenses. So whether you're looking to grow, whether you need capital, anything like that, it's basically free money. The thing to keep in mind with grants is they are highly competitive. There are hundreds of thousands of small businesses across the country looking to get grants. So we're going to kind of go over the application process, how to find grants that are suitable for your business. But overall, they're a really great way to financially support your existing business or potentially start a new one.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to know, for those who are attending us, if you have been the recipient of a grant before, maybe give a little emoji, thumbs up, or type in the chat that you've actually been successfully awarded a grant. I'm just curious to know who's had successful outcomes. Maybe also tell us if you've tried or applied for grants in the past, or if this will be your first time, seeking grant, being a grant seeker. So we'd love to kind of understand in the audience what level of grant experience we have with us today, so we can really kind of talk to everyone's specific situation.
So grants can be broken down into 3 different categories: government grants, which you can apply for federal, state, or local levels. We'll also talk about some of the large corporations and companies that offer business grants, and then also some specialty grants. A lot of grants focus on women-owned businesses, minority, veterans, and so we'll help you pinpoint what kind of grants might be applicable to you and your business.
Yeah, typically what you'll see when you begin your searching process is that the government grants are a little bit more involved, and a lot of times they will skew towards projects that are very technology, research, or medical kind of oriented. So if that is the space that you're in, government grants can be a really wonderful way to fund your business in large sums, right? Or get projects off the ground in non-dilutive ways. Corporations and large companies or foundations are also another great resource for small businesses in particular that really kind of maybe focus in on a niche part of, what you're working on. So a lot of things could be like sustainability oriented, green energy initiatives, community-based initiatives, economic development type of initiatives, or programming, even entrepreneurship programming. In educational sessions. And then the specialty minority ones, they're wonderful, especially if this applies to you as an individual. There's a lot of opportunity. It just takes more time to kind of unlock where they are. But we'll talk about some great resources of where you can find these opportunities for minority, women owned businesses.
So first, we'll start off with government grants. So these are grants that are given by the federal, state, and local government. Like Kate had mentioned, these tend to have the highest payout and are the most competitive, but it's the biggest distributor of grants, and they really do support a wide variety of businesses. And so a percentage of that money is then distributed to a state level. So as a small business, you have the opportunity to research and apply for a variety of federal and state grants. It really just depends on your eligibility and how much of a payout you're looking for. Like we said, this is where some of the biggest payouts are.
Yeah, exactly. If you are working, I know Brandon just typed in the chat. It sounds like he's got a lot of experience, likely with some of these state and federal or local grants. These are wonderful for helping to improve like placemaking, right? Capabilities for your town or building facades. But we actually are starting to see even a lot more grants becoming available for innovation, entrepreneurship, ecosystem building, and even technology or like broadband expansion or things of that nature. So there's new grants that are popping up that can really help kind of further your local initiatives within your community for your small business populations.
So breaking it down even further, like we said, federal grants are the most common type of grant and also the most abundant, but these are the most competitive, and a lot of federal grants focus on businesses that specialize in a few categories, which would be tech, education, and medical research. As a small business, a lot of my clients, I always focus them on state grants, just because these are a little bit more in their category of grants they might be eligible for. And a lot of these grants focus on innovative, rural-based businesses who are focused on economic development. But there are a ton of state grant opportunities for a bigger variety of businesses. And then federal grants, like I said, it's a little bit more niche. They're looking for tech, R&D, education. So as a small business, I think state grants are a really great place to start. So where to find state grants? Grants.gov, GrantWatch, Open Grants. These are basically massive databases that basically cover all grants administered by federal agencies. So it's a great resource if you're just starting out, you don't know where to look, and you really want to get a good idea of what's available and what you might be eligible for. These are some good resources for you to really kind of dip your feet in and see what's out there. It also lets you see the wide variety of grants available for every business background. And then the SBA, the Small Business Administration, helps businesses find all sorts of means of funding. So loans, capital, and there also are a ton of grant programs for small businesses. So I also recommend this resource as well. But this is just touching the surface.
Great. And I know specifically with GrantWatch, there is to kind of unlock the features. There's a weekly subscription, I think of $18, maybe monthly of $45, or an annual you can buy into. And sometimes it's great to just like dabble, or when you're in the time period of a year where you feel like there's a lot of opportunity to just do the subscriptions, to be able to find and narrow down quickly.
Yeah.
Through their open database, like the ones that will match. OpenGrants.io and I know GrantWatch, you can actually get connected or hire or find really great tools too to help you with your application. So if you're maybe struggling or wanting some additional information on like, how do I write a great grant application, they've got wonderful resources, and you can hire grant writers directly through there, or search for grant writers that might be able to support your specific application needs. The SBA administration, there's not as many grants through the SBAs, but what they do have are very knowledgeable about is like how to access funding, but other funding opportunities, and they have a ton of resources too that are not necessarily grant specific, but can support your business in kind of executing against that grant, whether it's marketing initiatives or other kind of connecting needs that your business might have that actually could support your application process, and helping you illustrate your impact and what that grant would do for your business, and how you would utilize that office's resources to help you make the most of that grant opportunity.
Yeah, and I will say, like Kate mentioned, I know GrantWatch, there are a few other sites that require some sort of subscription fee. I have a lot of clients who the beginning of the year, we go through, pay the fee, and kind of make a plan of what grants we think throughout the year they would be eligible for. So we know when they're coming up, when to apply for them. And so we're not just like constantly, searching. But so if you're someone who's really serious about, researching different sort of grants, I personally have seen a lot of success. I think it's worth a subscription fee. But, there's so many grants out there.
Yeah, this is just one way to help you keep in the know.
Yeah.
And for a very nominal fee, you can set alerts that will email you lists of grants to consider. So even when you're not searching, their algorithms and their websites are kind of helping keeping you informed about upcoming grants.
So these are just two examples of federal and state grants. There's thousands out there, but the Small Business Improvement Grant, they're actually now accepting applications, but these are grants that reimburse businesses for capital improvements. If you're looking to install new fixtures, furniture, things like that. I think someone in the chat had mentioned help repairs with an elevator. I think something like that would fall under this improvement grant. A second example, the Minority Business Development Agency Center. This is a national network of business centers dedicated to growing and promoting minority-owned small business. So there are a ton of different federal and state grants that cover a wide variety of business industries and owners. But these are just two examples. And I did want to include one that gives you an idea that they do accept applications throughout the year. So this is something you think that could apply to you, I would definitely check it out.
Awesome.
So next we'll go into corporate grants. So many large companies, corporations offer some sort of grant program for a small business. And these grants vary for profit and nonprofit. But a big reason a lot of small businesses kind of focus on these is because aside from money, a lot of these grants will come with industry perks. So for example, I know FedEx does free printing and delivery services. So it really just depends on your business and what you're looking for. I will say corporate grants do have the most, there's a big difference in application process for them. I've seen some companies do a pitch night where all businesses have to come out, they pitch their business, they pitch what they're looking for. I know Barstool Sports does a video submission. I've seen some companies host a contest. So while the process could be a little bit more different, more taxing, it forces you to get a little bit more creative too, right? It gives you another opportunity to make your business stand out. And so a lot of corporations do some sort of program, philanthropic, component in their organization.
Yeah, I would say corporate gifts, contests like that to this category.
Yeah, and just connections. I've had clients who go to like a pitch night and they might not have gotten the grant, but it's a really great networking opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing with these grants specifically is that it can get really difficult to keep track of like when they're opening up and when they close, because they're all on their own timeline. I mean, other grants are as well, but I find it's very challenging to kind of keep in tune with these. So if you identify one that you really like, and even though you're past kind of like the application process, put a little calendar reminder to, check in on their website, later in the year to see, when their open call is beginning again, or reminders of when the submission process is open, so that you don't miss it for the next kind of like funding cycle. They tend to, each one's different. Sometimes they're monthly, sometimes they're quarterly, sometimes they're just annually. So you kind of have to dig in and understand, when the cycles are for these corporate opportunities.
So some examples of corporate grants, I had mentioned FedEx. They award $250,000 to up to 10 businesses. And then the grand prize winners also get free print and business services. Verizon does a grant that's partnered with National ACE. It's called the Small Business Digital Ready Program, and it focuses on aiding small business owners in the digital world, which we're all about. Barstool Fund is a grant program that's rolling throughout the year. So this is something if you wanted to look into now. They do a video submission, but it is for businesses affected by COVID-19. And I know when they first started it, I don't know how the program works now. I know it was a consistent payout, if that makes sense. Like small businesses were getting grant money every single month. So that's a really great opportunity. And then Walmart and Sam's Club also have a grant organization. So aside from these examples, like I know Visa, American Express, Patagonia, there's so many large companies that have grant programs, but I would do your research and find companies that either align with your business, your values, and see what kind of programs or opportunities they offer for your business.
Yeah. One other opportunity, it's not necessarily money related, but it's more about supportive services. And they usually will tack on like a in-kind services of $50,000 or something like that. Accelerator programs could kind of fall, into some of these categories that we're discussing. And so there are some, I would say, business development or business educational accelerators that you could apply for and join, and all of their services and expertise to mentorships or business supportive services are kind of like wrapped and bundled in that. So it's expenses you're saving on your business through a program, not necessarily cash that you're being awarded, but just something to kind of consider. There are some great accelerator programs too that you might look into that's kind of, overlay against some of these categories we're talking about today for grant opportunities.
So the last type of grant we're going to talk about are specialty grants. So these are grants that are aimed to spread entrepreneurial success across many demographics. So a lot of organizations will focus funding in specific communities. So Kate's going to talk a little bit about a Beyond Maine partner, Hello Alice, but these are also some great grants to look into. It also helps narrow in your niche and stuff you might be eligible for.
Yeah, so Hello Alice is a partner of ours, and they're a wonderful resource for helping small businesses really kind of further their initiatives, their growth initiatives. And part of that is funding, right? So they have identified, as a lot of the research that's done has indicated that small businesses really, one of their top concerns is a lack of access to capital, and so they have kind of become a grant almost aggregator and facilitator of opportunities, specifically kind of focused on minority women-owned businesses and other kind of specialty grant opportunities all throughout all kinds of sectors, corporate gifts, venture capital awards, accelerators. They host a number of different sessions that can help you kind of with additional grant writing or grant seeking opportunities. And so if you're not a member of their platform, it's free to sign up, and you can create, opportunities to get your business known and get connected to that community through their funding center, but also through their business resource library. So we will also send you in the resources sheet, there's, I think, a link to the Hello Alice site to get started. But if anyone posts the call, has questions about how they get connected with Hello Alice, please feel free to reach out. It's a wonderful resource for small business owners.
So some examples, Accelerate Her Fund is a grant program through Hello Alice, which is Kate was just talking about. So this is grants aimed for more women, giving them the opportunity to receive funding and promote a more inclusive future in tech. So that's a really great grant. Reach Grant Program helps small businesses prepare for their next stage of growth. Like we said, some grants look to aid in COVID relief, growth, startups. So this is a grant that's looking to help businesses take the next step. And they provide funding for majority owned businesses through a variety of demographics. So women, people of color, military, disabilities, LGBTQ plus communities. So they have a really great grant program. And then Go Be Elevate Fund, that's the last one we're going to talk about. This aims to help entrepreneurs and small business owners with a focus on diverse and minority business. So they award up to $4,000 to any project meant to help grow your business. So this is just 3 examples, but there are a ton of grants out there that kind of focus on certain demographics.
The one thing that's great about Hello Alice too, and accessing these specific grant opportunities is the ease of applying through their platform. So if you're newer to grant writing, these are typically like forms, like online forms you can fill out that are very easy to input your answers, your stories. They break it down step by step, whereas a lot of the federal grants, they're a little bit more technical and like spreadsheet related, budget related, impact projections related. So these grants tend to be a little bit lighter in terms of input that you have to give. It feels a little bit more conversational, I would say, as opposed to maybe some of the federal and state grants that can feel a little bit more technical orientation.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the application process, because I'm sure as we were going through, you probably were like, oh, noting that grant, that might be something I can apply for. So the application process, like we said, like many of the grants that vary in qualifications, many grants have different application processes. Like we said, corporate grants tend to be a little bit more out there and they want a pitch or a video. Federal and state grants tend to be a little bit more lengthy, require a ton of documentation, business plans. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how to go about the process of applying, how to narrow down which grants you might be eligible for. But one thing I always like to tell people, keep in mind before you go applying, read through everything, make sure you have the requirements. You don't want to get to the end of an application and realize you don't have a certification or a document. So every application process is different. Every grant program wants different information, different questions. So take your time to complete the application, and we'll give you some tips and tricks as you're going through that process.
Yeah, I would say just from an organizational standpoint, every application you fill out, copy and paste those answers and those questions into a Word doc or whatever program you're using, so you can have kind of like a stored file of and folder for each grant that you apply for. What you will find is as you start to do more of these, some of your answer sets could be similar, right? Maybe not identical, but they're very similar. So it'll just save you a little brain power and like feeling like, what did I say on that previous application? I really like the way I worded that, answer to that question. So be sure you do a copy and paste of everything that you submit in online and save it into a document so you can resource back to it and maybe find answers that can help you build off of previous applications. The other thing I will say is like follow the directions very, very closely. My husband actually writes very technical grants for he's a professor, a researcher. And so, I mean, there's been times when he's told me people have been disqualified because they used the wrong type size or their margins were not correct. And if a grant specifies it must be 14 points, or the margins must be like, don't, keep to what their specifications are, because it could mean the difference between your application being disqualified and your application being considered. And you would never want to be disqualified over, some kind of minor stipulation. Yeah.
And a lot of time businesses, you don't get that feedback. You might just never hear from that grant again. So you want to make sure kind of why you're succeeding or what might be holding you back from successfully getting those grants. And like Kate said, we'll talk about the do's and don'ts. Every grant is different in that they all ask for different things. And that's mainly because they don't want, businesses just applying with a shot in the dark.
Yep. Awesome.
So some tips when applying. Like I said, I hope we kind of gave you some ideas for where to look for grants, but the best advice I can give, and the number one tip, is just don't apply to the first few grants that you think you would qualify for. before applying, before starting any sort of application process, I would really research the application, the company. I also like to look at previous winners, right? See who they've awarded money to in the past, because it'll give you a really good idea if your business might qualify for that grant and you might be an ideal winner for that organization. And that'll kind of give you the upper hand during the application process, and a better understanding of what kind of businesses they're looking for. I would also determine if you qualify, right? So I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, all right, I found these grants, I think they'd be great. And I find like one bullet point in there that I'll be like, nope, this 3-word sentence is why you don't apply to this grant. So you really want to do your research and apply to things that you're eligible for. You have a much better success if you apply and submit 3 really strong applications than 10 to 15 kind of so-so. The reason is your chance of being selected really,
Hey, I ain't get no granola. You want to say?
you really want to apply for grants that you have a really good chance at getting. Like I said, it can be taxing, can be time consuming. So you want to spend your time wisely and really put it towards grants that are worth the time and money. And then lastly, organize your materials. Like Kate said, keep a running folder of things you've applied for, questions you've answered, and you really want to make sure you're providing everything they ask and you don't miss any important information. If you forget anything, you answer something incorrectly, it can cost you the grant. So really make sure you have everything lined up, you follow all the instructions, and take your time, right? Start the grants early enough so you're not rushing and you have time to create a solid application.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, especially for the more involved grants, there's typically a program officer or someone who's kind of overseeing the applications, the receipt of the applications. They are actually a wonderful resource. Do not be afraid to reach out to those individuals or that office. If you have questions, if you want a preliminary screen to say, hey, do you think this fits, or what am I missing? It's their job really to help kind of facilitate a top-notch application, right? They want the best applicants to apply. So don't be afraid to reach out to those program officers if you get stuck or just want, to have some questions answered, because they're typically very responsive and more than willing to have long conversations.
So some do's and don'ts to keep in mind. I know we had mentioned grants there's ones that you can apply to throughout the year. I recommend really keeping a schedule and track of deadlines. You want to make sure you have enough time to apply. You want to make sure you don't miss any applications. And so I always try, the beginning of the year and every quarter to kind of keep track of what grants clients potentially might be eligible for and when we should start that application process. One thing that I think, no matter if the application process asks for it or not, majority of grants want some sort of business plan, and some federal and state grants want more of a lengthy one. Some might want a very short, straight to the point one. But this is just, think about it, organizations want to know where their money is going and how it's going to be used. And so making sure you have a solid business plan that really lays out who you are, what you do, where that money is going to be allocated will help your business in the long run. See what companies have funded in the past. This is a really great thing to do. It'll help you determine which grants you have a good chance of getting. If they funded similar types of businesses, that's a really good sign for you. And then lastly, we'll touch on this at the very end, hiring a grant writer. If you come across a grant that requires a well-written cover letter or proposal, you have some sort of pitch to do, a grant writer, similar to Kate's husband, could be a really great resource for you, especially starting out when you don't know exactly kind of how to successfully write a strong application. Hiring help might be something to utilize. Some don'ts, like I said, wait till the last minute. You want to submit a good application. You don't want to rush. You don't want to miss anything. Also, using a template. The same way you wouldn't use the same cover letter for a job, while a lot of the answers and documents might be similar, they might vary. So really make sure you're providing them the information they ask and you're not over or under providing. And then I think we've stressed this, which is don't apply, right? Spend your time on submitting a handful of really strong applications instead of some lower quality applications that probably will just get pushed to the side. So these are some things you really want to keep in mind. You want to stay on track of deadlines, have your documents ready, and spend your time researching, right? There are grants available for your business. You just have to pick them out.
Yeah, and I just want to re-emphasize that business plan first, or executive summary or pitch deck, whatever
Mhm.
is sort of the format that you are most comfortable kind of like ideating within. But having that as a baseline for your business will just make the application processes so much easier. If you're having to come up with it each time you go to apply, or even the first time you apply, it's going to feel very challenging. So if you've taken some time to kind of work through that business planning process, where just kind of understanding how am I presenting my business or my opportunity that I want to have funded, will just save you so much time on the back end during the formal application and submission process. So I really encourage doing that first before you even undertake like any sort of submissions. Try to work through
And
that,
it's,
get feedback on
yeah.
it first.
And it's a really great way to help your business stand out. Some of the applications that are a little bit more cut and dry, that require business information, website, things like that, it doesn't give the organizations a good idea of who you are. But this is a really great place to put your time and energy, because it's how you're going to make your business stand out among so many other businesses. So last thing I wanted to talk about today is a grant writer, mainly because I think they're such a strong tool for you to use. But grant writers are people you can hire to help research, draft, and submit proposals and grants. And they help a variety of businesses get all sorts of funding, but they specialize in writing and winning grants, right? That's what the end goal is. So these are some of the things they help you with, right? Find and research grants. So if you have a ton of grants that you think you might be eligible for, a grant writer has experience to say, I think this one would be a great one. I think this one might be a far stretch. They'll help you compile necessary documents and write proposals, right? If you have an outdated business plan, a grant writer is a really great person to kind of help write a strong business plan or a pitch deck, anything like that. And then target proposals, right? They'll kind of help you from end to end, find the grants and successfully apply.
I am a firm believer and you can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It just does take a little bit of time, but you know your business and your organization or your project better than anybody, better than a grant writer is going to know it in the beginning. So even if you can do it, work through some of those like conversational things, those presentation things early on, and eventually decide you want to go after some of the bigger and more competitive ones and enlist a grant writer to help you, have stronger outcomes or successful funding opportunities, I would say that's great. But really try to challenge yourself to write the grant through your own lens or words first, because I think you'll find that hiring a grant writer from the outset may not give you the results that you were hoping for, until you've kind of gone through the process of understanding what it's like and what's really needed, because you're going to be giving them that language, right? You know the project intimately, you know your business intimately. So you have to be able to talk about it and tell about it first to a grant writer that might be working on your behalf. And the only way to really do that is to kind of have gone through it yourself, at least to some degree. So I really want to just, give everybody confidence that you can do it. You know your business, and this is not something that is so difficult. You need to hire a grant writer, but there are situations where hiring a grant writer may lead to more successful outcomes. And so, where you can find these grant writers is, definitely that opengrants.io, GrantWatch, I think, has some resources to connect you to writers. And there's a few other resources that we'll highlight for accessing support for grant writing.
So yeah, these are some of the sites that you can use to hire a grant writer. I know as a small business, the first thing you're going to ask is like, how much do they charge, right? How much is it going to cost? I've seen grant writers from $15 to $20 an hour, upwards of a few hundred. I have had clients hire a grant writer in the beginning. It kind of helps them ease into what to expect when applying. And I've also had clients only really bring in a grant writer when they have a bigger federal or state grant that they're applying for. To keep in mind, right? Like, same as you would hire someone for your business, there is an interview process. Don't just hire the first person that comes up. You want to make sure you find someone who has a good success rate, right? I would definitely ask them how many grants they've applied for, what kind of businesses they've worked with in the past, and someone who's willing to kind of learn about your business and understand and really portray it through the application. And you kind of want their expertise to match your needs. So these are some great resources, even if you want to dabble in the idea, but I am 100% with Kate and I advocate that you can do it. It's kind of like, applying for a job. The more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you can kind of get a feel for what different organizations are looking for. So while it might feel taxing, it definitely is something you're more than capable of doing yourself. But if you are looking to get help or kind of help someone, start you out, I think a grant writer, there are some good resources for you.
Yeah. And they can be great coaches too along the way. If you're really struggling, that could be an opportunity to learn from someone who, does this solely or majority of their time, right? Or just has extensive experience and can get you on the right track if you're really struggling with getting going in grant writing and applying. Another thing I will add is, maybe ask for recommendations from those that you respect and admire who have also sought grants. If they know of anyone who they've liked working with, I think, it's an employee, right? You're hiring or a support person. So it really is important that they understand you understand them, and there's good communication between the two of you. Clear understanding of what the success looks like, right? What does success look like in this case? And also, ask to see their writing samples, which I know we've mentioned. Make sure their tone of voice you feel like matches maybe your tone of voice, or if there's, a way to communicate that be changed, they understand that. And, also maybe ask for some of the people referral, right? Recommendations, like who have they worked with in the past that you could reach out to and have a conversation with to kind of check that as a reference, right? To make sure you're making the right decision.
So hopefully we gave you a ton of good information. Kate and I will send out a document with some links of, some of the sites that we talked about. As far as where to start, right, I would definitely look at grants.gov, the small business development centers. We'll send out some links that can kind of help you start your research and application process and figure out what grants are out there and applicable to your business. We will also have this session on our YouTube channel, along with links to additional resources. So I'm hoping we provided you guys with a ton of information. There are so many grants out there. There are so many resources out there that I hope we were able to give you guys a good push and some knowledge as to successfully winning a grant.